What is up, everybody? Welcome to this edition of the Cheese Talk podcast. Tonight I'm joined by Trag from Wisco Sports on the Go. What is up, Trag? How you doing?
Oh, it's fantastic. The rain that's going to be here for the next five days, it seems like, is going to be ridiculous. But outside of that, we're doing good.
um, Tonight we're going to be talking about Wisconsin sports on the go, right?
Oh yeah, there we go. There we go. Everything. Just wrapping it all up, put it all together.
Yeah, we'll be talking Packers, Bucks, Brewers, Badger football, Badger basketball, a little bit of Badger hockey, um, NIL. Like your thoughts on the NIL? Because obviously it's impacting college sports in a major way. I think. My opinion, I think it's negative, but that's just me. I want to see players get paid, but there's got to be some type of structure for teams. Yeah, we'll get into that. But first off, I want to get your thoughts on the Packers offseason so far. There's been some coaching changes, some additions, some subtractions in free agency trades. What are your thoughts on the what's transpired so far this offseason?
I just spoke on this, yeah, actually earlier today on my show, talking about, watching Wicks get traded, watching Dobbs go, watching Rashawn Gary get sent out. And I feel like Goody, and I feel like this is heading in the right direction now. I feel like Goody's had enough. He said, okay, we've been running this back year after year, and what needs to change? What needs to get fixed here? And we need guys in the room who are going to accept their roles because we saw at the end of the year there was that big talk, right? All these disgruntled players, they didn't like their roles. And Matt LaFleur spoke on it. Goody now, I feel like he's making these moves because when you look at the guys who are being, traded away, when you look at them, who are your guys, right? Dobbs, they let him walk. And then you see Wicks, he gets moved out. You could see both those guys were, we didn't like our roles within the roster. Rashawn Gary, it seemed like the effort wasn't there. It seemed like he didn't care. That feels like a disgruntled player to me. So you see these guys getting moved out, and I feel like that's Goody and Matt LaFleur saying, okay, enough's enough with the direction of where we're heading right now. We need to right the ship. What do we have to do to turn the page? Because I feel like we're watching the same story every single year right now. They're good enough to make the playoffs. They're not good enough to win the North, but they're good enough to make the playoffs. And when you have a quarterback like Jordan Love and you have guys off the edge like Micah Parsons, you got Tucker Kraft in the room, you're in a win now mode. This isn't the window's open for 8, 9, 10. No. It's windows open right now. It needs to happen now. I feel like if you don't go into next season with the mentality of we're here to win the North and we're going to run you over, you're failing. And that's where I think Goody and Matt LaFleur are in this boat now in this offseason where they're making these moves to say, I mean, look at the Sky Moore move, right? They put no emphasis on special teams. They were just, we'll throw Dobbs back there. We'll throw Reed back there. No, now they went and got a guy. They got a guy who specializes in kick returning. I had to kick Keyshawn Nixon to the curb when he said that he didn't want to kick return because that's all you're good at. But anyways, you bring in a guy like that. I love that move. And then you add the depth that you need, right? Defensive tackle, that was a huge problem last year. That was a huge problem. Everybody, you listen to national media and everybody, and they'll say, once Micah Parsons went down, this defense was terrible. And they're right. But there was another guy who went down, Devontae Wyatt. Everybody forgets about him on the inside. If you would have lost Micah, but you would have still had Devontae Wyatt, it would have looked a lot better. But losing both those guys, that killed you. That killed you completely. So when I saw that Devontae Wyatt was going to be out, and then you saw Micah Parsons go down, I was like, oh boy. And then you saw the gap in the middle. You saw the problem. So what they do? They went out and got Hargrave. I love that. They're adding veterans right now, which is another step that I think they're taking the right direction. They're adding veterans into the room right now to kind of steady this thing because their biggest problem is they don't know how to win a football game. They don't know when they're up big how to put the foot down and end it. And I feel like they try, and they went through moments where they were trying, but they're lacking leadership on the field. Everybody loves to point at Matt LaFleur and say, he's not a good leader. He's not a good leader. Okay, but do you have good leaders on the football field? Does Jordan Love need to be a better leader on the field? I think so. I think he needs to be more vocal. I do. I think he needs to be more vocal. I think Josh Jacobs needs to be more vocal there. And I think bringing in guys like this, Hargrave, he's a been there, done that guy. Franklin, Benjamin St. Juste, not so much out there, but having McKinney back there in the secondary, and then having a guy like Bullard, I wish they all came into a season with mentality like Bullard has right now. Because Bullard, he is speaking out right now, and he's the guy who's going to back it up. And I love the way that he's talking right now because it's a fire. It's a fire that the Packers need to start right now. Not when the season starts. They need it in the offseason. They need to approach every practice like they're going to end up in the Super Bowl. That's the problem that I have. And I love the offseason trajectory right now because they're clearing house of those problem guys and they're bringing in guys that they feel like could help them, these veterans who everybody, I don't know about Hargrave, he's getting older, I don't know about Franklin, right? I looked at Franklin's stats when they were without DeForest Buckner there with the Colts. When he was out, Franklin's stats were awesome. He was great. And then when Buckner was out there, those two evened out. So you could tell that once Buckner was out, he stepped up in that run game. What did the Packers struggle with last year? Guys stepping up in that run game when the middle was wide open. So that's where I'm looking at these guys coming in. I love it. I love the trajectory on they're on. They're getting picked, right? Late round picks at this moment, but you're getting those picks. Goody's good in the late rounds. The draft is going to be deep next year, so I like getting picks for next year too because that draft is going to be a lot deeper. So I love what the offseason is right now. A lot of people very underwhelmed by what's going on. They're expecting too much. I think you're expecting too much at this point here. They got the pieces in the room. They need to add good depth, and I think they're going to address that yet within whether it's a free agent coming in or within the draft.
Yeah, I mean, and to bank on what you're saying too, I mean, Nixon, I I'm negative of him because he doesn't want to do kick returns, but that's what he got his money for. That's why he got paid. He wasn't paid
Right.
that money to be a corner. And the year he got his money to return kicks, the next year they switched the kickoff rule, so he was like null and void. You know what I mean? So he was put there because oh maybe
Yep.
he's fast, he can play corner. No, and the only time he looked good this year is when we had defensive pressure on the quarterback. Once that defensive pressure isn't there, he can't chase people around for 10 seconds. Nobody can.
Yep.
So once, like you said, once
Right.
you lost Blanco, once you lost Devontae Wyatt, I always say, if you're not to that quarterback within 3 seconds, and they've showed it against Detroit. When Micah was in, he was to Jared Goff within 2.8 seconds. And when he
It was
wasn't,
crazy.
the
Yep.
defense wasn't there until almost 4 seconds. That's huge. And when you have corners that the ball is snapped in 1,000, 2,000. By the time you hit 3,000, if that ball is coming out, they should be able to make a decent play on the ball. And when all of a sudden the ball is out, you got to turn your head and you got to run with the receiver, and you're going to lose track of the ball. You know what I
Yep.
mean? So you got to you got to get guys in there that are going to, create chaos up the middle. Rashawn Gary. Whenever I think of Rashawn Gary now, all I can think about is his quick trip TikToks, and well, when he was here, and him doing his light brisk jog after Caleb Williams and Micah Parsons coming from behind like
That
a
is a
you
hundred
know
percent the play I think of every time now. Is
you
Micah
know
just tailing after him and Rashawn just doing the oh yeah, well Micah's got him. Micah's got him.
and then you got Cowboy fans like, oh my God, look at his offseason workout video, he's going to be a monster. We thought the same thing for the last how many years?
Yep.
You know what I mean? And with having Van Ness and being able to get proper rest in between plays if you need rest, how was he not producing? How did he go sackless for the last 10 games of the season? That's inexcusable. The money he was making millions per sack that he got last year, and that was just uncalled for.
Right. No, I
He
agree.
had to go. He had to
Yep.
go. You
Yep.
know, he was when he was good, but when he was bad, and he was bad, it's just no excuse for it. And it's like you said, we're banking on draft picks, which is good. Maybe we'll use some draft picks to move up in the draft. Maybe we won't. But like you said, Goody's good in the late round drafting. Packers always have been, and with getting rid of Romeo Dobbs and trading Dontavian Wicks, what was he, a fifth round pick?
Yeah.
Wicks.
Yep. Yep.
So we got a fifth and a sixth round for a fifth round pick. That's, I guess, whatever, versus maybe paying him too much to where we couldn't afford to pay other players that whatever. Um, Romeo Dobbs, he was good, but he showed signs of being frustrated in Green Bay.
Right.
It's just, you know, I think with Golden, Reed, Watson, like you said, we got Kraft. Golden showed us why we drafted him that last game against the Bears last year. I think he's finally coming around to the playbook, maybe knowing the plays. But yeah, I just think that people expect too much. They want instant results. Fans think that we're playing Madden with no salary cap on. Well, It's not that way. It's a business, and if the Packers are that bad, I mean, all three of those guys would have rolled this year out of that front office without jobs. You know,
Right. Right.
so I uh I have faith in LaFleur. People or whatever throw darts at me. I don't care. When he's cooking, calling plays, he's cooking. He's one of the best in the league. But when he's bad, it looks pretty bad. He's got to keep cooking. He can't be so predictive on his play calling. You know, I'll say it to him blue in the face. When you have trips to the left and you're have in shotgun formation and you snap the ball and the running back goes out towards that trips formation, what do you think's coming? Okay, it
Yeah.
might have worked the first time, but the second time, do the same formation, but do a totally different play. It's just I don't know. And even like on quarterbacks at 4th and 1, don't go 5 yards off the ball and go into the pistol formation. Why don't you just sit back like Aaron does in Pittsburgh, hands on your hips, 15 yards off the ball, send your tight end in motion, have him go under center and sneak the ball.
Simple. It'd be too
It's
simple.
simple.
They
You're trying
try
to
to
be
get
too
too cute with it.
complicated,
Yep.
and then it just messes up. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, Rick, we're thinking alike. Sky Moore, yeah, he he's younger than Mecole Hardman when we brought him in last year. I was kind of pumped to get Mecole Hardman in last year, but he just didn't pan out. Sky Moore, I think, has more wiggle room, and he's, I think, a better returner than Hardman. So,
Right. Right.
um, yeah, but I mean, letting Rasheed Walker go. I mean, we had guys that were, you know, that
Problems. Lots
were
of problems.
liability
Yep.
on the line, you know? And I mean, only one that sucks that we lost, I mean, obviously it made sense was Malik Willis, but good
Right.
for him, you know. Um, Banking off of that, who do you think is going to go be our QB2 going into the year?
Oh man, that's a toss up in the world right now. I've said it a million times. I'd go out there and get one of these disgruntled players out there. Like I don't know if you'd go get Anthony Richardson. I don't know what it'd take to get him away. I think the Colts are still going to try with him. But maybe like a Justin Fields, bringing in a guy like that. Who wouldn't want to come if you're a
Yeah,
style of quarterback who's kind of like Malik Willis? Why would you not want to come to Green Bay? You just watched what Matt LaFleur did with Malik Willis. Now look at the payday he just got. If you're a
yeah,
quarterback similar to him, why would you not want to come be a part of this system? Work in. If you get in, you get in, right? You hope not, right? Because you hope Jordan Love stays healthy. But you're going to be seen a little bit. You're going to be able to work underneath the Jordan Love with Matt LaFleur, and then you have the potential to go make a big payday like that. I mean, if I'm Justin Fields, if I'm one of these quarterbacks who's struggling out there to find a starting job, I'm all for going to the Packers and getting in there. I think they need to go get a guy like that because you know that problems, injuries do happen, so you want to have a solid backup plan if you get to that point. So I'd be looking out there. There's probably guys that they're probably I'm gonna guess draft a quarterback. I'm gonna guess they're gonna draft a quarterback late rounds, way late rounds. They're gonna try to find somebody or maybe an undrafted guy. I think they'll probably bring somebody else in there. I that's a tough one. I'm still looking though. I'm still looking at one of those guys right now.
do you think
My toughness,
McCord or Desmond Ritter would fit that mold? Ritter more than McCord, but
Ritter more than McCord. I mean, either one would work. It depends on the way Matt LaFleur wants. Because see, there's a big difference from when the offense is ran by Willis versus when it's ran by Jordan Love. And I think Matt LaFleur opens it up to a little bit more of the I don't know, crazy when Malik Willis is in there. He's got Malik Willis just running around back there. He's opening up that playbook for him a little bit. They're more in the run side of it. Whereas Love, it feels like he's more protective of Love. And I don't know if he's telling Love not to run. I don't know what the conversations happen behind the walls. We wish we could know that. But Love seems really hesitant to run at times, which is irritating because when you look at some of these plays, he's got 10 yards to run and he could get the first down, but he decides just to throw the ball away against the Bears there in that playoff game. He had green grass in front of him. He could have went and got the first down. Instead, he threw it away. And then, well, we watched the rest of that game. We don't want to talk about it, but I mean, those kinds of things kind of irritate you. So it depends on the way Matt LaFleur wants. I mean, both guys, I think Matt LaFleur to be able to work with. Kyle McCord was pretty darn good in college there. So Desmond Ritter was too. Both guys projects, which Matt LaFleur loves to work with. We saw that with Malik Willis. So I think both those guys could fit in there.
yeah.
What's Ummer asking right now? My toughness
He,
versus
he
Matt LaFleur?
yeah, I was gonna ask you that. Yeah.
I would be harder than Matt LaFleur. Yes, I'd be harder on guys than Matt LaFleur. That's the edge that listening to Matt LaFleur talk at the owners meeting where he just seemed to not care, right? He was talking about some of the players and he said like they didn't want to work for their roles and just kind of the way that he was speaking. That's the Matt LaFleur I want to see. The Matt LaFleur who, yes, you want him to be a player's coach and you want him to be able to get down to a personal level with some of these guys, but you also want to see him be in charge. You want to see him out on the field there where he's holding his players accountable, expecting the best out of them. I don't want to see Dan Campbell out there screaming on the sideline because I don't think that's Matt LaFleur, but I want to see him hold some of these players accountable. I mean, how many times did we watch Rashawn Gary jog last year? And
Yeah,
he didn't get pulled. They were just like whatever, right? You look at the guys he had on the bench. You look at the guys Lucas Van Ness. You had Agabare. Both those guys were giving it play after play after play. I'd had those two running it. When Michael was out, those two would have been my guys. After I seen Rashawn Gary doing that, I'm done. Done with you. Done with you. Go sit
yeah,
down. I understand you're making all this money, but at the same time, we're trying to win a football game here, and I can't have you jogging across the field trying to catch somebody. At least show. I mean, no, he's not that quick. Like, I'm not saying he's got to be, get the guy every time, but show the effort at least. So I want to see
yeah.
Matt LaFleur get to that point where he's holding his players accountable. That's the biggest thing I want to see with Matt LaFleur.
Yeah, rumor has it Rashawn Gary's still jogging on his way to Dallas. So,
Decided not to take the
oh,
flight down there.
oh man, that just drove me nuts. But what I like seeing this off season is like Micah Parsons taking like Baron Sorrell under his wings down at his whatever gym training with. Did you see that video of him on that treadmill?
Oh yeah, that
Looked
was
like looked
that was
like the
impressive.
Incredible Hulk down there. It's
I
like, oh
know.
my
That's
God.
the guy
It's
people
like
forget about. They forget about Sorrell. They forget that we have guys in the room. I know a lot of people are worried because you're going to be without Micah for a couple weeks. Now, I'm not saying Sorrell's going to come in there and just be the guy right off the bat, but you have good guys in the room yet. And that's the thing where even when you get Micah back, you're going to have good depth there in the pass rush room, which is exciting to see. Everybody forgets about him because he was kind of forgotten last year. I can't wait to see him out there. You got Colin Oliver in the fold yet, too. I love to see those
yeah,
guys. They're probably going to go grab somebody else, too, out there. They are really good at finding talent later in the draft and finding good offensive linemen, pass rush, anybody out there. You're going to find some corners in that back end of the draft there. So I'm excited to see what they do in this draft in addressing some of the depth problems. They have the guys in place. They have their guys in place. They just need good depth. They need guys to fill
yeah.
in
I
behind
mean,
that
and
now. I think
bring
that's the way they're going to go.
you bring that up, and we got you said you got Hargrove. I mean, St. Louis. I mean, he has size, 6'4" or 6'3"
Right.
corner. I think of he's not afraid to hit. He's usually on special teams, and I'm thinking, well, that play against the Bears where Nixon's just sitting there watching the guy cross the end zone. It's like St. Louis, they would have been in there,
Yep.
trying to hit somebody, trying to knock somebody out. And you got Bretton Cox Jr., you got Jonathan Ford back, a D tackle, you got Christian Welch back. I mean, might be small names, but Christian Welch is a hell of a player on special teams, you
Right.
know, and that just yeah, you got young guys that get the opportunity. You mentioned Micah's not going to be in the first 3 to 4 weeks. Well, if we're getting Devontae Wyatt back and we got Hargrave and we got the guys up the middle, that should be able to benefit now because those guys might be getting double teamed on the line, freeing up the outside to get in there. With the hiring of John Gannon, hopefully he can scheme up some decent blitzes. I know he's not known for a man that does a lot of blitzing, but you know, change change is good sometimes.
We don't know anything about Gannon. We haven't heard him talk yet. I don't know where he
What
is. I have no idea where Gannon
70,
is.
76 days is it?
It's just ringing up right now. Like, is he going to be there for training camp? I have no idea where Gannon is. I get you don't always hear from coaches in the offseason. I get that. But I feel like when you make this new hire, I feel like you would at least have him talk to some network out there, or he'd talk to somebody.
Yeah,
Where is he? Is he on vacation? Is
yeah.
he gone? Is he in witness protection? What is going on with Gannon? I'd love to know. I'd love for somebody to find him out there. I mean,
Oh,
Aaron Nagler
that's
can't find him. If he can't find him, nobody can.
it's funny because I coached youth basketball with a guy who was a big Bears fan, and he was neighbors with Pasaccia, and I didn't have anything good to say about Pasaccia. He's like, oh come on, he's a really nice guy. I go, that's nice. I go, make sure you tell him that I'm gonna be at his house this weekend, putting for sale signs in his front yard, and just giving him a hard time. But I mean, I wish Pasaccia would have let the Packers know that he wasn't gonna stick
Yeah.
instead of making us wait those 2, 3, 4 weeks, whatever it was.
I don't know
But
what
I
that
think they
was.
made what I like about what the Packers are doing, like so with some of their coaching personnel, is they used to be head coaches, so they can command a room. You know what I'm saying? They can
Right.
talk to a large group of people and not just freeze in the moment. They can make good decisions and good calls. So
And I like bringing in the younger guys too. Some of the younger coaches who can get on a level with you, because the Packers love this thing of being the youngest team in football, and they keep going after this every single year. It seems like because that's the way they operate. They bring in young guys, they work them through their contract. So bringing in some of these younger coaches who can work with college level players, because they're just getting into the league. They got to figure out life yet. They got all this life changing money. There's a lot of stuff that goes into it, not just the X's and O's, not just the on the field stuff. There's the locker room stuff. There's the off the field stuff, trying to help these guys through. And that's where I think, bringing in these guys too, like Hargrave and Franklin, and even guys like St. Juice and Sky Moore, some of those guys who they've been in the league, they understand the league. Those guys are going to be able to help these younger guys get in, get their feet wet, find their way into the league, help them off the field. And that's where I think the coaching staff too, bringing in some younger guys into that coaching staff, allows for them to get on more of a personal level with these guys, understand the social media life and the influencers and the nightlife and all that. It's great that they're in Green Bay because there is not much of a nightlife, so that's great. You can avoid distractions, but at the same time you want to have younger coaches in there who can help these guys get to that next level, and I think that's a big thing.
yeah, and the younger coaches, like you said, they can relate more, I think, to
Right,
some of these
exactly.
younger players, and then you got the actual veteran players that can kind of keep an eye on them as well in the locker room and whatnot. And
Yep.
um, but yeah, I mean, are there any free agents that were former Packers that signed elsewhere that you wish that the Packers would have tried to retain? I mean, personally, I think my thing is addition by subtraction.
Right.
Like what we got rid of and versus what we got and where we're sitting with like the draft and the draft picks and stuff. I think we got better. You know?
I think too many people read into the amount going out versus the amount coming in, and they get
Yep.
really worried. And I think that's where they have to, okay, look at the roster that's left, though. And you got to remember, some of those guys who left, you already have guys in the fold to fill in. I think the biggest address that you could say, well, like Rasheed Walker, would you have brought him back? Maybe now looking at the offensive line depth, you could have said, okay, maybe bring Rasheed Walker back. But at the same time, you watched him last season, I'd have never brought him back because watching him out there, it looked like he didn't care. Jordan Love was on his backside and Rasheed Walker still trying to find the guy who hit him. Like watching some of those plays makes you like, I didn't want him back. And you watch Dobbs walk, and Dobbs had his moments. He had his moments where I said Dobbs is really good. And usually it was in the playoffs where he showed that he was really good. But you also saw Dobbs in those moments of looking like we talked earlier, a disgruntled player who just didn't want to be here. He didn't want to have this role. Maybe you want to be more highlighted. I don't. The Packers, see, the problem with the Packers now is, and I guess it's not a problem, but to some players it would be, you're not a focal point in this offense. Because Jordan Love, this offense is around everybody. They love to spread the
Yeah.
ball out. It goes to Jaden Reed. It goes to Tucker Kraft. They love to get everybody involved. And that's where you're not a hot spot for those guys who want to get 1,000 yards. They want to get all the touches. They want to be involved every single game. I said my favorite thing about the Packers offense was you could utilize everybody. And it was a different guy every single week who was leading you in catches, leading you in receiving yards, whatever it was. So that's where I think some of these guys maybe got upset with their roles. They weren't getting enough touches, which we thought was a problem with Dobbs last season there. Turned out there's a whole bunch more going on, or the story was different wherever you asked. But that's where I think letting some of these guys walk, and that's why I think Goody did. That's why I think he let a lot of these guys walk. Was he saw them as problems. He looked back at the tape, and as much as Goody doesn't want to say Rashawn Gary was a problem or Rasheed Walker was a problem, they were problems, and he can see that. Goody's too smart. He's gonna give you this BS comments in a press conference, and we can see the game, Goody. We know Rashawn Gary stunk. We know that Walker didn't have his greatest year, but he's going to tell you they did, and that's the way he always operates. He gives you those BS answers, but Goody's a smart guy. He knows at the end of the day what's going on. So I don't think there really was. I don't think there was. If I had to pick one, I'd say Dobbs, just because I like the consistency at the wide receiver position. Especially now you traded Wicks, so now you got less depth there at the wide receiver position. But I mean, losing Dobbs, that was almost like a safety blanket at times. If you gave him that slant route on the third down, it seemed like he always came up with it. So that would be the only guy that I would really say I'm gonna miss a lot out of it. Outside of that, the rest of them, I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah, Nate Hobbs, he can enjoy California.
Yeah,
All the off
sure,
season, all
earlier.
the training camp talk about him they wanted him to scale back on tackling because he's hurting his own teammates out there. Then he ended up getting hurt himself, and then he missed most of the season. And when he was out there, he stung too. So
I was excited for him. I really was. I was
so was
excited
I.
for him coming in, and it that was one of those signings where you just kind of accepted that it didn't work, right? And I'm glad that Goody did. He didn't try to stick it out. He didn't try to say, "Well, let's try to make it work. Maybe he'll stay healthy next year." He just cut bait and said, "I'm good." And I like that. I like that approach because it's sometimes you have to make those hard decisions and say, "I screwed up," right? We look at the Badger football, right, with Luke Fickell and why he keeps his job at this point, and it's like, oh well, McIntosh's job is kind of tied to Luke Fickell's job, so he can't really get rid of him yet. He's going to throw more money out there, right? I like when GMs and those guys will just say, I made a bad decision. They accept that they made a bad decision, they bite the bullet, they move on, and that's what he did. I love that.
Yeah. Last question, Packer related. Well, kind of Packer related. What are your thoughts on the Bears potentially going to Indiana?
I don't want it. I It'd be funny, like humorous, but at the same time, I just being in Chicago at that Toilet Bowl Stadium just brings me joy. And if they move to Indiana, it just doesn't have that, because you're right there, right? You're right there. It's a different kind of feeling. You got your border rivalry there. They move over to Indiana, it's just. I don't know, out of the way now, and they're probably going to get a better stadium, so I can't make fun of their stadium anymore. So I don't know. I don't think it's good for football, to be honest with you. They're the Chicago Bears. That's the way it's supposed to be. And you can't, I know there's people who are like, oh, well, we'll move them and they'll still be known as the, Chicago Bears. It's like, no, they can't be the Chicago Bears if they're in Indiana. That's not how it works. Like, if they're in a new town, they can't be the Chicago Bears. That'd be like the Rams moving from St. Louis to Los Angeles and they were still the St. Louis Rams. That doesn't work. Like, they're going to be something, the Gary, Indiana Bears. Like, nobody wants that. Nobody wants the Gary, Indiana Bears. They need to find a way to stay in Illinois. I don't really care about the Bears. I don't like the Bears, but at the same time, it's historic. They got to stay in Chicago. They got to stay in Illinois somehow, or around Chicago. They got to stay in Illinois somehow. That they have to.
Yeah. I think. I mean, I don't see it happening. I think it'd be hilarious, but just talking to some Bears fans, like they'd be devastated if they moved, and that would be so funny.
Oh
Just
yeah,
just to have devastated Bears fans. I said it's like having like the Packers move to like the UP, like Escanaba. You know,
right,
that would never
right. No,
happen.
I
So
at one hand, like I don't care about Bear fans, but on the other hand, I think about because we've had talks, we've like been concerned about the Brewers moving, right? Or we've been concerned about all the Packers. What would happen if they all of a sudden just weren't able to stay in Green Bay anymore? Like we would feel terrible, right? We would feel terrible. So on a fan level, I don't care about Bear fans. I don't care if they're sad, they're sad. Like, I don't care. But on a football level or a fan level of the game of football, I feel bad for him to say, like, you lose your team. Like, I'd hate to see any St. Louis fans. I feel bad for St. Louis fans who lost the Rams. And now they moved out to Los Angeles, and most fans in St. Louis aren't fans of the Rams anymore, which stinks because you lose a big fan base. Well, you gained one when you went out to LA, but you lose a fan base in St. Louis. So I never want to see teams move. It sucks to see them move because you lose that in your city.
yeah, and it's like the Chargers, the Chargers moving too, but it's the Athletics moving to Vegas as well from
That's
Oakland.
just dumb.
You
That's
know,
just the dumbest thing
that,
that's ever happened. They're not even in Vegas
yeah,
yet. They're in what's that
yeah,
minor league ballpark? Like you could have played out the rest of your days in Oakland, but no, let's just lock the doors and we're gonna go play at a minor league baseball field. Like, oh, that whole thing is just
yeah.
dumb. That whole thing is
Well, because they figured that there would be enough fans mad enough to where they could probably maybe fill up that minor league stadium and not lose money on tickets.
the problem was
But
that your owners stopped caring and you had raccoons living in your booths up there. That's what the problem became in Oakland. Like that was such a pretty stadium, and the fans wanted to care. It's just the owners didn't care. And when the owners didn't care, the fans stopped caring because they weren't putting a product on the field anybody would want to watch. Like it's sad. It's sad when you see owners who just stink, don't spend money, keep this constant like let's just pocket it all, right? And then they don't bring in players and then fans just get ticked off, don't even show up.
speaking of that, what are your thoughts on the? We'll switch sports and go to the Milwaukee Bucks.
That oh man, oh man, oh man. The Bucks. What a letdown of it. I shouldn't say a letdown of a season. I should well. Did you have high expectations going into it? I thought they'd be a playoff team. When you have one of the best players, if not the best player in the East at least, you should be in the conversation for the playoffs. Now, the problem is now there's too many distractions in the room. I do. I think there's too many distractions. Giannis, you never know. Is he going to be in Milwaukee next year? Is he not? Is he going to get traded? Is he not? Nobody knows at this point here. Now you have all this crap that's coming out that apparently Giannis wants to play. The Bucks won't let him play. The Bucks said that he had to participate in 3-on-3 and he said no. So the Bucks said, "Well, if you're not going to participate in that and you can't go full 100% in there, we're not going to let you go 100% in the game." And I am pro Bucks on it. I am pro Bucks on sitting him because here's the problem. Some players need to be protected from themselves. Plain and simple. Giannis is a guy that if
Right.
you put him out there right now, he's going to go 100%. And that's the way he plays. And you love it about him. You love that he wants to play. But you are 32-49. You stink. You're not even going to make the playoffs. The season's over. You got to think about it. The season's over. If you go into this offseason, Giannis hurts himself because we've seen these calf problems lead to Achilles tears. If he tears that Achilles, the Bucks are sitting with a Giannis who's not going to play next season. They can't trade him, and they're not going to be able to play him next year. So what do you do then? You're stuck. So if they let him out there and he gets hurt, he's screwed, they're screwed. So the Bucks are basically saying, well, let's protect both of us here because if you want to be here next year and we sign you to a Supermax and we keep you around, if you're going to be here, we're going to keep you healthy. We're going to have you ready to go next year because this season is lost. Giannis wants to play with his brothers. That's the biggest thing. He wants to be on the court with both of his brothers. That'd be awesome, right? Great. But you don't want to risk the injury. And that's where this Bucks season is at right now. I mean, the rest of it, they stink. That plain and
Yeah.
simple, they stink. Right now is
Yeah.
about seeing these younger guys get out there and seeing what you have to build around next year, like a Ryan Rollins, like a Dang, like those guys. Seeing those guys play, see what they can do for you. We saw a couple of other young guys there. AJ Green had a good night the other night. I can't remember his name. He went to North Carolina. He just had a good night the other night too. That name escapes me at this very moment. Hold on, I'm gonna find it here. Cormac
Cormac.
Ryan. Cormac Ryan had a fantastic night. He's had a couple great games here for the Bucks. So seeing some of those young guys get out there, you love it. You want to see what you have to build around for next year there, whether Giannis is here or not. But what this season is basically boiled down to is what does the offseason look like for the Milwaukee Bucks? Because now you're in this. I feel like it's just if this is what causes the divorce between the Bucks and Giannis because they wouldn't play him because they were protecting him from himself and they were protecting themselves, whatever. Okay, bye. Like, let's just move on. Let's cut bait. Let's be done with this because you can't keep this constant cycle of is he here? Is he not? What's going on with Giannis? I'm over it. I'm over it at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you got to figure it out. I mean, it's if you're gonna trade him, obviously you got to make sure you get like what you think he's worth, and if that's
Right.
fleecing the team, and that's what it is, you know. And we've seen what Rollins can do. We've seen what AJ Green can do. We've seen what Deane can do. I mean, they're all good young talent. If you can get, maybe like a role, a few, veterans. I mean, this draft picks, and I mean, build something new. I mean, Giannis, you built around him for so many years that we've gotten one championship out of it.
Yep.
And in the playoffs, the last couple of years he's been hurt. So I mean, is it worth? I mean, yeah, for the sentimental part, you want to keep him there, but you got to realize it's a business, and it's yeah. I mean, Kevin Porter Jr. He's had great flashes of. There was a few times, there's been games where Kevin Porter Jr. by the third quarter he has a triple double. It's like, dude, this when he's good, he's good.
Right.
When he's on his game, I like watching him play. It's because he's aggressive and doesn't take crap from anybody. I just like whatever the Bucks do, I guess they do, and we gotta live with it. But I think they move on from Giannis. I think they're keeping him healthy to make a trade in the offseason.
The problem with this season too is keeping guys healthy, right? How many times have we seen Kevin Porter Jr. and Giannis on the floor at the same time? Not very often, maybe a couple times at this point. And I know they're good when they're both out there because you have Kevin Porter Jr.'s ability to get downhill, you have Giannis's ability to get downhill. It makes Miles Turner better, it makes everybody better, right? But keeping them healthy has been the problem. So now, as you go into this offseason, you're going to be able to reset. You're going to be able to have Kevin Porter ready to go next year. Guys like Ryan Rollins, like we were just talking there. And then if you do trade Giannis, What do you get back for that? Now you kind of move on and you reset. Doc Rivers, most likely, hopefully, if he comes back, I am just going to completely shut off the Bucks. But if getting a new head coach in the room, getting a new voice in there, I think that's where the Bucks need to trend right now. I think you are in a rebuild mode, and I think they have the right guys. I do. Having Dieng in there, having guys like Cormac Ryan and AJ Green, you're going to get out of the contracts of like Kuzma and Portis. You're going to have those guys exit. So getting those bigger contracts out is going to allow you to go and do a lot of things. Getting Giannis out is going to allow you to. How many things have they done for Giannis at this point? I mean, to be honest. You brought in Dame.
Right.
You brought in Miles Turner now. You brought in both of his brothers. You've made a lot of moves for Giannis. So maybe moving on from him, you never want to move on from a star player. I'm not saying this is like I'm, heartless and I want to lose Giannis because I'd love him to be a Buck for life. But at the same time, you got to make tough decisions sometimes. And I think this is one of the tough decisions that the Bucks will make here is moving on from Giannis, capitalizing on him, and bringing in some good maybe picks or bringing back some good players to go along with it.
Absolutely. I mean, like you said, the season's a wash. This focus more on the offseason, getting your team healthy, and then, see what the offseason and see if you can fester up any trade talks. And if they're positive trade talks and you think you're getting a good deal for whatever, if you're going to trade Giannis, hell, go for it. What do you have? I mean, it's just he's getting older. He's not getting any younger. It is what it is. Let's move on to some college sport talk. What is your opinion on the NIL and how has it affected college sports in a good way, in a bad way?
I've always gone back and forth on this one. NIL is a good thing. It is a good thing for the game, simply because the NCAA is just making money off of these guys, right? Year after year, the NCAA is lining their pockets with money due to these players putting it out there for them, whether that be in college basketball, whether it be in college football. These guys, they are, I mean, you don't want to say being taken advantage of before NIL, but they were making them a lot of money and they weren't getting anything back. Now, do I believe that some guys were getting paid before NIL? I do. I do believe that there was some under the table stuff to be talked about there. Now it's legal, right? Now it's legal to do all that kind of stuff. NIL is a good thing. But I think there needs to be structure, right? And this is where I've said the problem with what the NCAA did, and they don't care. That's the problem, is the NCAA doesn't care because they're making money. Viewership's at an all-time high. They're making revenue like left and right. So they don't care. But the problem is that they knocked down the dam and flooded the town, and they didn't just put small cracks into it to try to get the stream going. They just knocked the whole dam down and said, screw it. Like, this is what we're going to do. That's the problem. There was no structure. There was no control. So there is no control now. You see it with the NIL. There is no cap, right? So some schools are able to spend more than other schools. It depends how much you have in your NIL funds. We talk about the Badgers. I've heard that the Badgers last season for men's basketball operated on $12 million. That doesn't seem like a lot. When you look at Michigan, they had a lot more to spend as you looked at that starting roster and you said, wow, there's a lot of good players in there. Well, they had a lot more money to spend. The Badgers did not. Why? The Badgers in their NIL funds don't have a lot. They really don't. And they put a lot towards football now. They just had that whole, I got to read up more on it now, but there was a bill signed in Wisconsin that's going to allow them to have more NIL money to spend. So that's interesting. Yep. I got to read more up on that before I can speak on it. But I've heard this season for men's basketball, they're going to have probably $17 million to spend, which is an uptick, which is good to see. But you think about it, when you add in, Nolan Winter, right? He's probably going to make $3 million. I would say he's probably in that 3 to 4 range. Austin Rapp's going to be in that 2 to 3. And then you factored in, okay, John Blackwell is searching for 5. You couldn't afford John Blackwell because if he got 5 and Winter got 3 and Rapp got 2, you're already up to 10. And you have to figure out $7 million for the rest of your roster. Well, that's not a good place to be. So that's where the problem comes where I have it with NIL, is that there is no cap. There is no structure. So all these schools are different. Some have more to spend, some have less. So I feel like there has to be a structure there. I think the real problem in the whole thing is the transfer portal. I think that's the biggest problem. Because, and I have no problem with guys transferring. I have no problem with it. I have problems when they transfer every year. I have problems when it's, more than one. I think there should be, you can transfer once. That's fine. I'm okay with you transferring once. But if you want to transfer again, you have to sit a year. That's the way it used to be. You had to sit a year if you moved on, unless if there was special circumstances like your coach left or whatever. So I think there has to be that structure. The transfer portal, I feel, is the bigger problem because you see guys constantly jumping in every year and you have no control over your roster. You could bring in 10 guys this year and they could all leave next year. And then you have to reset and then you have to restart, which is the problem. And I think that's the bigger issue. NIL, I feel like, isn't the it's an issue because there is no structure, and that's a problem. There is no contracts, and when you talk contracts in college sports, you'd have to get a CBA, you'd have to get all that madness going on, which just opens up more cans of worms than I think the NCAA wants to open. Because here's the problem: the NCAA, like I said before, is making money. So they don't care. They're not going to adjust the way that they're doing it because they're making money. But I feel like they need to adjust the transfer portal. I think that's the biggest area of problem right now is guys' ability to just freely year after year move on from a program. I feel like once is good, twice, okay, now you have to sit a year. That's going to negate a lot of people, and that's going to help with roster building and help these coaches out a little bit because it's a constant battle. It is a constant battle for these coaches. You have to keep guys in. You have to recruit guys. You have to try new contract negotiations. There's so much that goes into it now in college. I think that's the problem now.
Yeah, I think I look back and like you mentioned, like if you transfer, you should have to sit a year, right?
Right.
You look back to I always said that had AJ Storr stayed for that second season at Wisconsin, he'd be like in his third year in the NBA right now. He'd be making good money.
Yep.
But then again, now you have these rookie contracts, and they're like, well, if you stay one more year here at Michigan, you'll make more in NIL than you make on your rookie contract. So that's making kids stay as well, and then that's like stunting the growth of high school kids coming into college. You got to pick other schools to go to because a lot of these rosters
Right.
are already full, you know. But it's a mess. It really is, and it's hard to get. Before it's like, oh, Jonathan Taylor committed to Wisconsin. He's a good track athlete. He's going to be really good and this and that. And you have to worry about him getting bought out by somebody else. Well, I mean, you kind of did with now teams are getting to do what other teams have been doing for years. Now there's like a level playing field, but like I said, there's no cap, there's no structure. So whatever, it's hard to get excited for a team like for the Badgers, getting all these recruits to commit. Like the Murray Latimer, he one of the top running backs in the cycle for whatever, and last second he ditches before signing day and goes to West Virginia. It's like, well, you can't get too excited because there's kids doing this crap that are, you spend six months to a year, excited for these kids coming in, and all of a sudden he just rips your heart out, And
Yep.
but what I like to see with Fickle, he's 14 and 16 as a coach for the Badgers. He came in, he tried to make it, the air raid, which is absolutely stupid because Wisconsin has run the ball first, pound the rock. They've been that way for years. And to come in and change the whole identity of a team was a big mistake on his part. But what I like about this year is all the in-state recruiting that he's getting. He's getting the kids from, down in the Milwaukee area. He's getting, the tight end from, was it Mosini? I can't think of his name right now.
I believe so. Yes, I could find it for you.
But I mean, you got Braylon Allen out of Notre Dame. He's getting, he ran for like 15,000 yards this last year in his junior season. But Loken, is that the kid's name? Loken, tight end.
Yeah, Loken out of Iowa. He's out of Iowa, Scandinavia.
Yeah, Iowa, wherever. Yeah, but I mean, they're getting the twins from Sussex Hamilton. They're getting, they're just getting big guys. And then you get that new offensive line coach from Arkansas, and I'm like, watch, there's gonna be some big guys coming in the transfer portal, and he's pulled, I think, at least one guy from the SEC, some big dude. It's nice to see this. I think, who'd they keep? Gary and Dupree, running back.
Dupree's back. Yep, Dupree is back.
Yeah,
there.
so I mean, they have a decent running back room. It's just you get these guys that they come in, they have this ego, and they don't get the playing time they think they deserve, or you got people chirping in their ear behind the scenes saying, "Oh, you can make this money coming here," and it's just a lot of that stuff. Tampering. Xavier Lucas, that still pisses me off to this day. He was really good for Wisconsin, and Wisconsin wouldn't grant him his release for the transfer or whatever. And well, I'm going to Miami anyway. Well, you knew right away that tampering was happening, and Wisconsin sued Miami. So
Yeah.
it's just stuff like that. It's so hard to like get excited for players and knowing all the stuff that can happen now, especially with social media and exposure and you got dirty money and you got it makes it super hard to to root for a team until the games actually start for that upcoming season.
You can't develop guys anymore. I think that's the biggest problem is guys don't want to sit in a program and develop. I think that's what the transfer portal has done to college sports. Because you see guys come in and that's why, you look a couple years here now, Luke Fickell hasn't really targeted the state of Wisconsin. And I factored in two things. One, those guys weren't going to fit his system because he did bring in Phil Longo and they had the air raid offense. Well, when you think Wisconsin, you think Wisconsin football, you see a lot of power offenses, right? You see a lot of bigger offensive linemen. Those guys don't fit that air raid, quick moving offense. So that's where I think some of that factored into some of the in-state stuff, but I also think it's in-state talent. I also thought there was that problem with in-state talent. You needed guys who were going to come in and contribute right away. You needed 5-star, 4-star, 5-star guys, right? Which he wasn't getting anyways. But you needed those guys. And I thought Wisconsin's talent level over the years wasn't the greatest. So I don't think that helped at all with the in-state portion of it. Now, attacking the state, they have a lot of good guys coming out of this 2027 class. I mean, you just spoke on it there. They have 8 of the top 10. You love to see that. But you see a lot of talent in there, too. And I think that kind of factors into it a little bit, is the amount of talent in these classes. And were they going to be able to contribute? Because I think part of the problem, like I said, is you can't bring in these 3-star guys who are going to sit for 3 years and then play. You don't have those guys anymore. You don't have 3-star guys who are going to sit for 2 years. If they don't play year one, odds are they're gone. Like, recruiting isn't, I don't want to say it isn't important because it is. Recruiting is important. But at the same time, the transfer portal is more important. Like, because you want to bring in guys who can be automatic plug and play. That's just the way that it is now. You want plug and play guys because development isn't there in college sports anymore, which sucks to say. Because you look at a guy like we were just talking before with Badger basketball, Greg Gard. Greg Gard's very good at developing players. Look at what John Tonje was before Madison and after Madison. I mean, just the difference in the player that he became. Johnny Davis. You look at a lot of these guys, the way that they've been able to develop when they sit in the program, they accept, hey, this guy can help me reach my potential. Okay, let's stick it out, right? Those guys are hard to come by now. So recruiting has kind of taken this back seat, which you don't want to say, but it seems like it is. It's taken a back seat to the transfer portal because you need plug and play guys nowadays. Sitting guys just doesn't work because odds are most of your guys, if you bring in 30 guys in a recruiting class, odds are 15 are going to transfer. At least 15 of those guys are going to transfer. You just spoke on Amari Lattimore going to West Virginia. They brought in like 40 freshmen in that class. Like 40 freshmen. There's like 3 or 4 running backs coming into that class.
Yeah.
Odds are 20 to 30 of those guys are going to transfer out after next season because they're not going to get playing time, whatever, or they're going to go somewhere else to get better teams or stuff like that. So it's just recruiting. That one baffled me. I couldn't believe that they had such a big class in the recruiting class, but it's not the end of the world that he wasn't in-state recruiting. He was still getting guys. You look back at the years, and I'd have to go back a couple of years there to look, but he was still getting guys in the top 10. He'd bring in like 3 or 4 of them, but he was bringing guys in from down south or any other places because that was the system he was running. That's where they were kind of at. But look at Mason Posa. He came out of what, New Mexico? He's going to be one of the best linebackers, I think, in the Big Ten. And you brought him out of New Mexico. Catalano didn't come from there. So I mean, you just look at the guys that he's brought in. He's brought in good talent, and you like that he's got a reach, but you like that he's coming back to the state. And I think he's coming back to the state because the talent level's there now, and I like that. I like that talent level's there, and he made it an emphasis to go and attack the state of Wisconsin.
Yeah, I like to. What I'm seeing more with the recruiting the last, I say I've seen it more this past off season of college football. Is you have like Joe Thomas, and you have Ron Dane, and you have some former Badgers that are getting involved with like the program again, which is like when
Yep.
you think of Badger football, you think of Ron Dane, you think of Joe Thomas. I mean, even like in your area, Mark Tauscher from
Oh
Auburndale.
yeah.
I mean, guys like that. It's just you got to get. It'd be nice to see like J.J. Watt get involved. I mean, you talk about 4 and 5 star. Look at his record. He was a 0-star or 1-star out of high school, and he went to
Yep.
Central Michigan or whatever it was, and he came to Wisconsin and became one of the best defensive players in probably school history. And you just gotta, these kids they're young and they're impressionable, and they once they see money signs, they jump. Like loyalty isn't really loyalty anymore. It's just you're chasing the money. And I think that if there is a limit on transfers, like if you transfer, you got to sit a year. I think that would like you said, you'd be able to develop kids better and get the best version of the kid that you recruited. It's frustrating, to get all excited in the off season and to have everything that's pulled out from underneath you. But even like Wisconsin, they lost like 32 kids after the season last year, but they got back more than they lost.
Right.
So I
Yep.
mean, that's you don't know what you got with those kids. So hopefully it pans out and they look good. And then you mentioned Greg Gard. He may not be getting 4 and 5 star recruits, but he's getting kids that believe in him, believe in the system, and they go out there. You can look at Tanj, you can look at Nick Boyd, you can look at, some other guys, and, even for big guys, look at Nolan Winter,
Yep.
I mean, look at a lot of the guys, they're role players, and I just think, regardless, of Wisconsin, they've made the tournament how many years in a row, except for a couple of years ago. Why wouldn't you want to come play for Greg Gard? You
Exactly.
know?
No, exactly. If you're a wing player, if you're a guard, like you want to come to Madison at this point because he's going to
Yeah,
highlight your talents. And I was just looking back. I just brought it up here. The 2026 top football recruits in Wisconsin. The top player was a 3-star recruit that ended up at Iowa, a wide receiver.
yeah,
So I know there's a lot of people complaining about Luke Fickell not targeting in-state guys and that, but did you want the 3-star recruit that ended up at Iowa? Did you want the 3-star guy that from Janesville that ended up at Minnesota? Like, are those the guys that you wanted? Because you would have complained about his recruiting class then that it wasn't good enough. Like, that's where I kind of look at these recruiting classes and say, well, maybe the talent wasn't there in the state. And that's what a lot of people just like to look at. Well, why didn't he go and do this? This is why he sucks. No, that's not why he sucks. Why he sucks is what you said earlier. He tried to change Wisconsin into something it wasn't, and they were never going to get the recruits to play in the system that he wanted to play. You had to stick to what you had, and I think that what you said was perfect. Now they're getting back to that. With Jeff Grimes coming in, they're getting back to that. A little bit more power, but also you wanted to see him take an advancement because you want to be run first, but you got to have the ability to pass. Wisconsin became really predictable. They just wanted to run the ball, and when they got into some of them shootouts, you weren't going to win a shootout. You weren't going to be able to drive the ball down the field quick. You needed the power run, which was good with Paul Chryst, right? But you wanted to see an advancement in Wisconsin. You want to see him kind of like Greg Gard with the Badgers, right? Do you want to see Greg Gard adjust back to Bo Ryan where it's 62-54 is the final score? Or are you liking the way that the Badgers are playing offense right now? Because I like the way that they've advanced offensively scoring the basketball. Now it's about getting back to defense because their defense sucks. But looking at what Luke Fickell is, bringing in Jeff Grimes is a little bit more of an advancement on what Paul Chryst and Wisconsin were doing, where it's a little bit of that pass added into there. Bringing in athletic quarterbacks like Colton Joseph there or Deuce Adams to play quarterback in there, adding in those athletic guys. That's something that you wanted to see them advance. Get to that next level there. Don't completely abandon the run and go to an air raid, but get some of that offense running in there. I love the direction that they're heading in now with Grimes. The problem is last year, you still had air raid guys. Like, you have to remember, you don't just completely flip the program over all in a day, right? You still had your air
right.
raid guys in the room. Jeff Grimes didn't have his guys. You can't keep the quarterbacks healthy. I mean, goodness, how many years are you going to lose your starting quarterback there early on in the season? I'm throwing a random guy out there. I've said this a million times. We're cursed right now with starting quarterbacks. I'm bringing back like Braden Locke or something like that, having him start the first week because then he'll get hurt and then you can throw in the real guy. Like, that's kind of where I'm at right now with Wisconsin football. Like, the quarterback keeps getting hurt, and that's leading to a lot of problems.
I like the fact that Ty Hilton, he decommitted or hit the transfer portal, then he came back. I like that. You know, he
Yep.
he comes from a great family. His dad was awesome in the NFL. And I think that kind of spoke numbers within that team.
Right.
In a way, especially in the wide receiver room. Um, but yeah, I remember. So this year in state basketball, De Pere ended up playing against Germantown, and they had was it Cole Ryder, like 6'7", 6'8",
Yes. Yep.
315 pounds, and I was watching the game. I'm like, oh my god, that dude he's just absolutely huge. And when he was in, he was effective, right? He was scoring points and he was protecting the rim and everything. And like the second half, they didn't play him. I'm like, oh, why aren't? Because at that time when they pulled him out, the game was still close. I'm like, why isn't he playing? I have no idea, but yeah, I mean, it's just nice seeing these guys that you can connect with within your state. Um, I think back to like Greg Gard when he offered Von Cavarla when he went to Oregon High School, which is the same high school that I went to when I was going to school, And funny thing is, Marquette offered him as well, and Shaka Smart is a graduate of Oregon High School as well. So
Oh,
it's
that'll
kind of a
do it.
funny triangle, you know what I'm saying? But he ended up his senior year. He transferred this last year. He transferred to what like Vista, that team in Arizona, Bella Vista. They won
Yeah, that sounds
the
right.
they, they won the national championship this year for the Chipotle thing in whatever Indiana. He ended up committing to Indiana University. And it's like, well, they have Mark Cuban funding their NIL. You know, I kind of wanted to see him going to Wisconsin, but because he played with Greg Gard's kid at Oregon on the high school team.
Okay.
That's where Greg Gard's kid went to school.
Yep.
So I thought maybe there's a little bit of a connection. Maybe there's a little bit of hope that he would stay home and go to the Badgers, but he didn't. But he's a 6'7". He reminds me of like an Andre Kirilenko. He's like dunk first, but he's a good
Okay.
shooter too. So yeah, he's probably top 10 in next year's or in this year's senior class. So he's wish him the best. Um, but what direction do you see the Badger basketball team going? I mean, I know we lost John Blackwell, we're losing Nick Boyd. I think Carrington, he was a senior as well. So I think
Yep.
we got Zach, not Johnny. We got Zach Kinziger from De Pere. He's going to be a sophomore. He when he gets hot, he's a good shooter. I just think we need to get more size. We got to size up against Michigan. And what people seem to forget too is look at Greg Gard. Look at his wins this year. His top 10 wins. They beat Michigan State. They beat Michigan at Michigan. They beat Illinois. I mean, if people just believe in his system, they'll have good results.
Greg's a fantastic coach. He's a fantastic coach. He irritates me at times. His inbound or his end of the game play calls irritate me sometimes because there's a lot of dribbling for 17 seconds, then they just chuck up a prayer. But that's a story for another time. I you know the direction I've said I want to see the Badgers go in is they need scrappy guys. They need scrappers. They need guys who just want it, who are just going to bring it, right? I think when they get to the tournament, you look at High Point, you look at a team that was smaller than them. Their tallest guy was 6'8", 6'9", right in there. And the Badgers had the size advantage. They had just come off of games where they out-rebounded Illinois. One of the best, if not the best. I think they were top 3 in offensive rebounds on the year, and the Badgers held them to 9 offensive rebounds. They actually won the offensive rebounding battle, which was impressive. And that was without Nolan Winter. And they did all of that. And it made you have so much hope. And then you go in a game against High Point, and they out rebound you. They out rebound you on the offensive end, which comes back to wanting it. Which comes back to you saw so many plays watching John Blackwell or Nick Boyd just stand there underneath the hoop and just watch it come down to a High Point guy. You'd see 3 High Point guys, 1 Badger. That's the problem. You need guys who want it, who are going to bring it. That's not a Greg Gard problem. Yes, it's a Greg Gard problem to the point where you want him to get on his guys, right? But when it's in the middle of a play, in the middle of the action, Greg Gard's not out there holding their hands, right? You need your guys in John Blackwell and Nick Boyd and Andrew Rohde, those guys to go and get it, to want that ball more than High Point. You watch John Blackwell, that inbounds pass that got poked out of his hand. John Blackwell's got a 2-hand. I mean, if that was Bo Ryan coaching, John Blackwell wouldn't have been playing. He'd been sitting on the bench right next to Bo. How many times did Bo Ryan sit Sam Decker? Sam Decker was better than John Blackwell. And Sam Decker would sit when Bo Ryan got upset. That's just the way that it was. You want to see Greg Gard get those scrappy guys into this program. You need to get some size. I agree with you. You need a physical big. You need a physical big. Nolan Winter's not a physical big. Neither is Austin Rapp. Will Garlock, he might be that guy. Garlock might develop into that physical big that we're looking for right now, but you need like a Chris Voigt. That's what you need in the system right now. You need one of those big guys to bring off the bench. You have your bigs figured out. Your 4 and 5 right now is figured out with Rapp and Winter. Hopefully, right? They haven't announced any that they've got deals done, but I assume just listening to the GM for the Badgers, just listening to some of his, he had like a not a press conference, but an interview, and they were kind of talking to him about what's going on in there. And they basically said they're done deals with Winter and done deals with Rapp. So hopefully get those 2 locked up. That's the start. You lock those 2 up, now we know how much money we have to spend. If you have 17, like I said before, if you lock those guys up for 5, you have 17 to spend, you have 12 left, right? It's crazy we're talking about money with college basketball, but you have 12 left to spend. Then you can go out and you can say, okay, if I get this guy, say like a KJ Lewis coming out of Georgetown, I love him, big physical guard, played at Arizona, then he went to Georgetown, was fantastic in both places. You bring him in, okay, say he's worth 3. Okay, now what do I have left to spend? I would rather get some $1 million guys who are going to bring it and are good players than a big hitter, right? A big $3 million, $5 million guy, and then have to fill my roster with random guys. I don't want that. I want to see him bring in some key. You don't want to bring in. You need to replace scoring, but you don't want to go crazy with it and try to go get one of these big hitters. You're Wisconsin. You're good at bringing Greg Gard, and this is where people need to get to. This is where fans need to get to. Is Greg Gard has been really good about identifying talent, finding his guys out there like a John Tonje who didn't look great elsewhere, didn't look like he was the greatest player in the world, but when he came to Wisconsin, Greg Gard found a way to unlock something in him and made him into a great player when he was with Wisconsin. That's what he's going to do again, and that's what you have to wait for. The problem is right now with the transfer portal, I know everybody wants the Badgers to go out and get everybody, right? Go get this guy, go get this guy. That's not how it works. The big dogs are eating yet, okay? The big dogs are eating. That's what I talked about earlier. There is no structure. There's no cap. You have Alabama out there right now. You have Duke out there right now. You have Michigan out right there. They're sifting through the big food right now. They're sifting through the dog bowl. They're going to get theirs. You're hoping that there's a piece of bacon at the bottom that you can go and grab if you're Wisconsin. And that's where they're looking.
Right.
They're not looking in that top tier. They're in tier 2 and 3 right now, and they're saying, okay, look at these guys. Who looks good in here? You're bringing in Foxwell from Australia there. That's an interesting guy to bring in. Very good guard, very good shooter, can put pressure on the rim. So you have to factor him in. I think he's going to be ready to go. You have Hayden Jones still around. I liked what I saw to him last year. I think he's going to factor into it a little bit. You have Kingser, like you mentioned before, very good shooter. I thought he was underutilized last year. I don't know why they burned his red shirt if they weren't going to play him. It was kind of weird situation there. But you also had the emergence of Braden Carrington, which kind of pushed Kingser to the side. I think Kingser, he's got the confidence. I think he's going to be good. I think he's going to be a bench player, though. I think he's a bench player yet. I don't think he's going to factor in that starting lineup. So realistically, right now, you need to find, because I think Foxwell will be a starter, you need to find a 2 and 3. You have to replace Rhodey. You have to replace Blackwell right now. And I think they're going to go out and do that. They're going to find those guys, but you have to be patient. You have to be patient with guard. You have to be patient with the process because it is a process. Wisconsin doesn't have unlimited funds. They can't just go get everybody like your Dukes and Michigans. You have to be patient with them. Greg Gard, trust the process. He's got an ability to identify talent. It's like the Brewers. This is what I compare it to. It's the Brewers. They're not going to give him more money. Why? Why would you go spend more money on your payroll? Why would you go spend more money in NIL if Greg Gard's been able to make it work? So that should give you promise that Greg Gard has been able to make it work year after year. He's going to make it work again, but it's about getting the right guys in the room. And sometimes I know people don't like that Blackwell's gone and that boy, you lost all this stuff. I know people don't like that. But at the same time, where was it really going? You lost in the first round or you lost in the second round multiple years in a row. You haven't been back to the Sweet 16 since 2017. The trajectory right now, it's not going in the right direction, right? You weren't getting anywhere with this route. You were winning in the regular season. You did good in the Big Ten tournament, but you weren't having that postseason success in the big dance, right? So maybe it's okay to restart, reset the roster, bring in some key pieces, evaluate where you're at as a program because you love what they're doing offensively. But I said I would love to see them go back to a little bit of a Bo Ryan philosophy, not offensively, because I don't want to see 62 points a game. I'm okay where they're at right now. But defensively, getting after guys defensively, putting more of a focal on rebounding, free throws, the little things in a game, ball security, those little things in games that lead to problems. That's what I want to see them get back to. So I think that's what this offseason allows Greg Gard to do is bring those guys in who are going to get after it defensively, be a little more scrappy. Those are the guys. You need Josh Gossers. You need Max Klesmitz. You need those guys in the room. And I feel like they lacked that last year. I feel like now they have the ability. Losing John Blackwell sucks, but that's $5 million you have to think off the books, right? If he was going to be worth $5, we weren't going to be able to do it. Now you have the ability to go spend that money elsewhere, which hopefully you can bring in the right guys.
Yeah, I mean, you just gotta look at Guard's resume in the regular season and let that speak for him. You know what I
Yep,
mean?
exactly.
Let your actions speak louder than your words, and that this they gotta look at the big picture. And don't they want to be part of something special to maybe change the norm? Come in and kind of get their program to the next step. Um, but yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens between now and the start of next season for the basketball team. Um, What are your thoughts on? I know the Brewers are what, like 14 games in,
Yeah,
or
I
12 games in.
believe so. I'd have to double check what the actual running total is right now. They're 8-6, so 14 games. Yes, yes.
So ever since they took away, yeah, it's just I get so sick of like I'm sure people can say this about the Packers too. Like I'm in Green Bay area, so like I don't have to pay for for whatever whatever app to watch the Packers or whatever because they're right
Yep.
on local TV. But now like Valley Sports and all that crap, once you're with Charter and off the list, on the list, off the list, now you got to pay for subscription. So I don't get to watch as many Brewer games, and I don't really read up on the Brewers a lot. But I see highlights and stuff. What are your thoughts on the Brewers so far?
Well, my thoughts are changing day by day right now. My thoughts are changing. It's early. That's what people have to
Yep.
remember. It's early. I
Yeah.
think there's too much overreaction early in the season because you have to remember it's not like football where you play on Sunday, you have a week off, you play on Sunday, you have 17 games, you got to figure it out fast, right? This is baseball. It's 162 games. It's not a sprint. It's a marathon. It's a marathon here. So you got to
Yep.
remember that it's really early. When we get to Memorial Day, that's when we're going to do our real check in on where the Brewers are at. But you have to remember right now you're playing with only part of your roster. Jackson Churio is still out. Andrew Vaughn is still out. Quinn Priester is still out. Those are three big names on your roster that are out right now with injury. That's a huge problem because right now, offensively, you're looking at the Brewers. It started out really well on the offensive side, but now it's starting to slowly get a little rough here as of late. You lost two to Boston there after winning the first game out in Boston. You lost two, and now you've lost the last two to the Nationals here at home. These City Connect uniforms apparently stink because it's not leading to success, so maybe we got to switch it up here for the Sunday game. But the offense has just been struggling. And you're going to have that. You're going to go through stretches where the offense is going to struggle. And that's what we've kind of seen here. You've had guys who've ran into some tough luck, right? Renhefo, I don't think he's got a hit in his last how many at bats, but if you actually watch his at bats, he's made some pretty loud contact. It just hitting it right at guys. You have guys who are going to go through unlucky stretches like that. You've had guys in your roster right now Bryce Terang slowly starting to hitting this little rough patch here. He started out good, now he's hitting this little bit of rough patch. And then I mentioned Renhefo Contreras, he's off to a decent start. So is Yelich. Gary Sanchez was off to a good start. Now he's starting to come back down to earth. So you see a lot of these guys throughout this roster who are just struggling out of the gates, and it makes you worry, right? But you got to remember, you bring Jackson Churio back into that fold, you bring back a guy like Andrew Vaughn, you feel a lot better. You feel a lot better when you look at this lineup. You feel a
Yep.
lot better looking at this roster. Now, do they have holes? Yes, they have holes. But you have to accept that with the Brewers. They are always going to have holes. They can't build a roster like the Dodgers do every single year. There's a lot of people right now who want to see the young guys brought up, right? Everybody's like, where's Jesus Made? Where's Pratt? Why don't you bring these guys up? Hamilton stinks. This guy stinks. This guy. Okay, if the Brewers, you feel like the Brewers want to win, right? I assume they want to win. That would be my guess. So if they thought that these prospects were ready to rock and roll right now, don't you think they'd probably bring them up if they felt that way? Yes, if they felt like they would lead to winning, they would bring them up. I would be okay with, maybe a Pratt coming up at some point here if this struggle continues because they are struggling to find production on that left side. Third base has been a problem because Renhefo has started out a little bit slow. You hope that he can find some outfield grass here at some point because that's the problem. He's just running into unlucky hits, right? Had one in his first at bat, hit it right on the label, sent it out to right field. Joey Weimer caught it on the run. You just run into bad luck like that sometimes. And that's kind of where this Brewers team is at. Now, first game against the Nationals, that was just implosion by Trevor McGill there in the ninth. Couldn't figure out how to field a bunt. It was just a mess. So that led to that. I believe he threw 9 pitches, and I think he gave up 3 runs on 9 pitches. Like, it was just madness the way that it all went right there. I could be off just a little bit on my numbers, but it was madness. It was absolute madness
Yeah.
that ninth inning the other night there. But the Brewers, they're fine. We got to relax. We got to take a breath. They'll figure it out. They always do. Pat Murphy's got these guys. They've just played some of their worst baseball as of late. They've just definitely played some of their worst baseball as of late here. They got to get some of these young guys acclimated into the big leagues here. Brandon Sprout has struggled off the bat here. Harrison had a pretty good night the other night there. But it's about getting healthy, getting these guys back, Vaughn and Churio, and then you're going to be able to really address this team to where they stand.
Yeah, I mean, you'd rather have these bad games in the start of the season than
Right, get them out of the
towards the
way.
end. get them out of the way, like you said. But yeah, like I said, I haven't really. I mean, I'll like watch highlights and stuff, and I just haven't been able to really watch any games. I'm not going to do Stream East or anything because I don't want to get tracked down. But I'll watch highlights and everything. And you see enough highlights, obviously on social media and stuff. So, um, uh, yeah, I just like you said, it's a marathon, not a sprint. So it's early, but yeah, I mean, I'd rather get the bad games out of the way for those players that you mentioned. Um, and what are your thoughts on? I know you said that you don't know much about, you don't follow hockey too much, but obviously the women are doing something special in Madison. You know, 5 out of the last 7 years they've won the national championship. Um, they've won 9 total national championships. They had what 4 or 5 girls go on the Olympic team to help win the gold. Maybe they had more than that with current Badgers and past Badgers, that were on the team. Um, how big is that for Wisconsin as far as, and even Division 3 UW River Falls won the national championship in hockey too. I don't know if you knew that or not, but how big do you think that is as far as getting girls to to play hockey in the state of Wisconsin? I mean, like, you get girls that look up to college athletes when they're 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. How big do you think of an impact that is for them to pick up skates and take on the sport of hockey? And then how do you think it affects the recruiting of getting those top athletes to come in, whether it's commitment or the transfer portal? How do you think that factors in for Wisconsin?
On the first front, they're talking about, getting the youth involved, right? When you see winning, it just automatically looks fun, right? It looks fun. When you see celebrating, when you see winning, when you sit down on the couch and you see that, that's what you want to do. That is exactly what you want to do with your life. You're like, oh man, that looks like fun. That looks like absolute fun. When you're watching a losing team, you have kind of that negative effect. Like, why would I want to be a part of that, right? Because when you're a high school athlete or you're a eighth grader or whatever it is, and you're playing in the sport, and say you're playing a sport and your team just stinks, right? Well, it's not as fun. It's not as fun to be a part of that. But when you're watching, when you're seeing, when you could go to some of these games and witness it, and then maybe they have, times where you see a lot of these teams where they meet the players, right? And you could talk to some of these players and how much they enjoy it. That just brings this different kind of element where you're like, I want to go pick up the skates. I want to go pick up the stick there. I want to go out on the pond or whatever and slap the puck around a little bit. Like, it just makes it better, and it brings more of a light onto the sport. And I think nowadays, right, it's easy to be able to watch it. I think that's the nice part nowadays. And I think they do have a problem where they don't allow you to be able to watch these games enough. Once you get into tournament play, like the Badgers, we just watched the men's team there in the national championship. They're on ESPN, and you watch the women's game. It was on one of the ESPN stations there too when they were in the championship game. But before that, if you wanted to watch hockey, Big Ten Plus. So you have to pay $19 a month to watch just Badger sports on Big Ten Plus. Not a very. I think that's what the deal is. I'd have to go back and look. I deleted it now because I just never used it. But it's just
Right.
another subscription, right? Maybe your parents don't want to get it. So I think they have to find a way to make some of this stuff more accessible, right? So you have so much social media, so many platforms that you'd be able to put this out on, whether it's YouTube, whether, wherever, that you can allow these girls, allow these boys to be able to watch some of their favorite games. Allow them to be able to watch these not as known sports. I don't want to say not as known sports because hockey's big, right? But, football and basketball, they make those easily accessible. Whereas hockey, it's a little bit of a problem sometimes. Even volleyball can be a problem sometimes to find. So I think they have to find a way to make it more accessible, whether that's through the university or what they can do with that. I haven't done a deep dive into it. Maybe it is more accessible than what I think, but I've always seen that when I want to watch the hockey games, I had to watch it on Big Ten Plus, which I feel like that's a problem. I feel like they should address that and try to make it more accessible so that kids, like you're saying, are able to watch it a little bit more. Not just able to watch the highlights, but are able to watch the full game, get the atmosphere, and be able to just experience the whole thing. Because there is something about being able to experience the whole game, the intermissions. Because like today, during the men's hockey game, during intermission, they were talking about how the guys who didn't suit up, they sit up in a booth. I've never seen this. They sit up
Yep.
in the booth and they watch the game, and then they'll come down and they'll actually talk to the coach there and talk about, strategy and what they're seeing and all this. And I've never seen that before, but I thought it was really interesting. And I was like, well, I'd be okay if some of these other sports took advantage of that and utilized that, because it keeps those guys engaged in the game, also helps them learn the game a little bit, and they're more ready when you need them or need them next season, whatever it is. So I really thought that was cool. But you get to see that kind of stuff when you get to watch it. Well, we wouldn't have known about it if we didn't see it on ESPN, because they don't make those games accessible. So I think that's a big problem. But going back to it, success leads to more eyeballs, which leads to more interest, which is a great thing. So I think it's a great thing that the women's hockey team's doing well, and so the men's hockey team. I mean, they played really well, got to the championship, lost that heartbreaker at the end there to Denver. But, I mean, just a fantastic finish for both teams on the season. But all in all, I would say, I mean, looking at these hockey teams right now, what it does for the Badgers bringing in transfers, it's huge. It's huge because you see the success of these women, or even of these men now, and their ability to not just perform at the college level, but then they get to go pro, and you get to see some of these guys or women or guys go pro. That's huge, and you see them in the Olympics, and you're like, oh man, I want to be there. I want to go to the Olympics. I want to be a part of that here in 4 years. That's huge. So the ability of them to constantly pump through talent and help develop talent is huge in the transfer portal. Brings more eyeballs to Wisconsin. You love to see it. Yeah, I mean, the coaching staffs that they have are unreal at this point. I mean, they've been fantastic too. So nothing but great things happening with Wisconsin hockey.
Yeah, and even like for the men's, the name Suter, rings a bell for a lot of Wisconsin Badger fans that are familiar with hockey and whatnot, and um, to see what like Ryan was able to do, going from well, he was also at one point he was going to school in Oregon, Wisconsin, but he ended up going to, I think, a private school before he went and played for the Badgers, but. He had success for the Minnesota Wild, and I think he got traded to a team on the East Coast. But you have all these other former Badgers that are, doing good at, in the NHL and stuff. So yeah, it's and then you see these women as well. In the Olympics, you're winning gold medals. You're at Wisconsin, you win national championships. It's gotta help a lot, to get the talent to wanna come play for the Badgers. It's
Right.
good. It's good to see. I always grew up, obviously, growing up in Wisconsin my whole life, or being in Wisconsin my whole life. When you root for the Brewers, they're always, like the underdog. You root for any Wisconsin team, they're always the underdog because what's in Wisconsin? You root for the Packers, and you know, for a while they're underdogs, and just it's always good to watch sports and see like the potential of like the underdog,
Yep.
beating the big giant. So it's always fun to watch and see happen. So, um, yeah, I mean, I think right now Wisconsin sports are sitting in a good spot. You even got the Brewers. Their farm system is one of the best in baseball again. That's something that you think back to Ricky Weeks and Prince Fielder in that class. That was an amazing farm team there that came up for the Brewers. And I wish Prince would have had a better. He had a good career for the Brewers. But I wish he would have stayed and been more productive in his later years. But it's tough to see him go. But it's a business, and
The
but
sad
I don't
part,
agree with
sad
I,
part
I
about
don't
the
agree
business.
with I don't like the Brewers whatever is they're
Antoninacio,
yeah, whatever his name is. It's just he's I don't know. I wish there was a salary cap in baseball too. I really do.
there.
That's
That's the hope that as of the end of this year, they have to come to a new agreement with the players association, and the talk is, or the players union, and the talk is that when that all happens, they're going to suggest a salary cap, and then there'll be a lockout, and then we'll wait and see if the owners will be able to push a salary cap. I want to at least see a salary floor. I want to see a floor put in there so teams have to spend to a certain extent. The problem is you have teams like the Brewers who don't even spend because you get that revenue sheet. Now, a lot of owners hide their books, so you don't know how much money they actually make. But you see the revenue sheet and you look at it, and like the Brewers would make, say, 324 million in revenue in that year, and 109 would go to the payroll. Well, you want to see teams at least pay half, right? Half of your revenue should at least go to payroll. So I think a lot of those teams are the problem. Maybe the Brewers. The Brewers are subject to their own. They are their own problem because they continue to have success with such a little payroll. That why would you go out and spend more money? If you're Mark Anastasio, why would you? You constantly make it to the playoffs. You're constantly bringing in money. You know your fans are accepting that they're not going to beat the Dodgers, so they get over it. So why would you go add more? You can't add the talent. That's the mindset that it seems like they constantly live in. Is why would we go spend more? When we can make it work with what we have. Now, when that comes back to bite them finally, then we'll probably see them, go out there have to spend more money to try and put together a better roster. But I just don't. The problem is the Brewers. The problem with the whole thing is the Brewers because they constantly find ways to win while spending little money. Right? If the Brewers go and win the World Series this year, they screw it all up. They screw it all up because then the Dodgers, the Yankees, all those teams would say, well, why do we need a salary cap? The Brewers just won it with a $109 million payroll. Why do we need a salary cap? If they can do it, anybody should be able to do it. The Brewers are the problem. They are the problem because they find ways to win baseball games, and they won 97 games last year. They made it to the NLCS. If the Dodgers win it all this year, it helps with the salary cap talks. If the Dodgers don't, then we probably will not get one.
Yeah, I always joke that too bad like Coors or Miller Coors couldn't not associate with baseball and just buy the Brewers.
Yeah.
Just buy the Brewers and they could have billions. They could outspend. They could outspend the Dodgers. But
What the Brewers
that'll never
need is to
happen.
get some of them small investors in there, right? Like you see Haslam going around, and you see his name all the time. I believe he was involved with the Bucks, and then he was with the Browns, and yeah, I think he had the Deshaun Watson contract, right? I don't want him to be involved in decisions, but you want to have guys like that where they come in, maybe call like a guy like John Menard, and you say, hey, how would you like to buy a free agent? Like, bring in guys who are going to help you spend money. They don't have to invest completely in the team. You just want their money to go get a player, and they can just tie themselves to that player. Like, that's kind
You
of
could have
what
like
I would be.
Menards, and you could have Quick Trip. You could have Culvers. You
You
could.
need a Culver's guy. You need the Culver's guy to come in there and buy you a player. Like, you don't need them to be owners. You don't need them to like buy into the team. You just want them to like invest in the team,
Right.
invest in a player. Like you could see that's where I would trend if I was the Brewers. I don't know why they haven't ventured down that avenue yet, but that's where I would trend is trying to bring in some of these bigger name guys. Maybe it's an athlete, maybe it's a former athlete, where you get them in there and you say, hey, we can give you a portion of the profit or whatever, but come in here and invest in a player, invest in this player that we want to go get, whatever. Just trying to work it that way. That could be ways the Brewers trend. I want to see a salary cap. I hope it happens, but at the same time, the players' union sucks. They
Yeah.
suck, and they're probably going to shoot it down, and they're going to shoot. I mean, last year Manfred tried to talk about it, and Bryce Harper said, "Get out of our locker room." Like that's what he told him straight up. It's like, first off, I don't know why Manfred even takes it from these guys because Bryce Harper works for the owner who worked for him. So I don't know why they could just come in and say whatever they want. Bryce Harper's. Yeah, I have my own problems with players around the league, but he's a problem. You just have
Yeah.
when guys make a lot of money, they don't want to see a salary cap. Why would they want to see a
Of
salary
course.
cap? They can make unlimited money, so why would they want to see it? There's bigger problems, I guess. The Dodgers and all their deferred money. I mean, Shohei Ohtani's only making like $2 million this year, but between 2034 and 2042, the Dodgers have to pay like $2.1 billion in deferred contracts. That's a problem. You need to get rid of that. You need to get rid of that mess. You need to make teams no deferred contracts. The Dodgers need to be held to their payroll. Like Shohei Ohtani's only making $2 million. That's ridiculous. Off of that $700-some million contract, it's ridiculous that he's only making $2 million this year. But they were able to defer money, and they've deferred a lot of these contracts, and that's why they're able to build a super team. Now the Brewers could probably do that too, but then once that time's up and you get to 2034, then the Brewers have to pay that back. So then you'd have to accept that you're going to suck for how many years straight. So there's lots of problems that lead to that. I think they need to control that to deferred money, and the salary floor would be nice. Make teams spend 110 mil. Like, make them all spend 110 mil. I feel like that's a fair way to go. And then if you set the floor, now teams actually have to spend money. I think that makes for more of a competitive league.
Yeah. I think. I still think Otani was involved with the gambling. He knew well. He knew about it. He knew
Oh,
about
yeah.
it.
Don't even
But
get me
he's a
started
face
on
of
that.
baseball. He's
Yeah,
a
don't
face of
even get me
baseball, so they're
started
not
there.
going to
They
punish
brushed
him.
that underneath the
And
rug so fast.
and the same thing about back when LeBron James, when the HGH
Oh,
back in
yeah.
his prime, he had that surgery that's like linked to growth when you're taking that. I mean, how can they not? His name was in the files. It was like how can they not go after him? Well, he's the face of basketball back then, so they're not
And you
going to.
can't touch
He
them. Yeah.
draws money.
Yep.
So it's just it just sucks how when you get how athletes get away with stuff. It's frustrating, but yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah, you didn't
But
notice millions of dollars being gambled off you by your interpreter. Yeah, that'd be. I would never notice. I'd never notice that. Like, yeah, I get it. You make millions of dollars, but I feel like once it reaches like $5 million missing from your account, you probably notice. You probably notice after a while.
yeah, that just seems really bizarre that he had no idea what was going on. Yeah, right. You knew, but
Oh, here's our
that's
stat for
gonna.
the night. The Brewers are scoreless in 25 of their last 26 innings. That was tweeted by Kurt Hogue like an hour ago. So there you go. There's the state of the Brewers right now. They were
That's
scoreless through
well,
25 of their last 26 innings.
it's a marathon, not a sprint.
It's a
You'll be okay.
marathon, not a sprint. That's all you need. Actually, so now it should be 25 of their last 27 because, well, yes, 25 of the last 27 because Contreras homered in the ninth, so they scored one run. So there you go. There's your stat of the night.
Yeah. Well, hey man, that's gonna wrap up today's or tonight's show. I want to thank you for being on and yeah, giving us all this information. It's awesome. Can you tell the viewers where they can find you on social media?
Of course, I just like to ramble. There's a lot of rambling that
That,
happened in there
yeah,
for an hour straight. So
that that's fine. It was fun. I
You
got
can find
educated.
me. You can find me Wisconsin Sports on the Go with Trage or Wisco Sports on the Go with Trage, some version of it across all the social media platforms out there, TikTok, Twitter. You can find the podcast out there. I put my radio show. So we're on Wednesdays and Saturdays from 5 to 7 on Wednesdays, and then Saturdays from 10 to 11. We're going to be adding more days in here pretty soon, but it's a slow, steady process, right? Got a lot going on. I don't got time for more. But anyways, you can find it there on 92.3 WOSQ. If you miss it there, you can find it next day across the podcast platform, Wisconsin Sports on the Go with Trage. You can find it out there. Make sure you like, subscribe, follow. But thank you for having me on tonight. I had a ton of fun. This was awesome. It's always nice not to have to be the host, just to be able to take a back seat and just ramble on and on about random stuff. It's always nice to do that every once in a while.
Yeah, absolutely. It was you know trying for a bit to get you on, and things just didn't work out between with I had stuff going on, you had stuff going on, and here we are. So
There
it's
we
awesome
are.
having you on. I appreciate it. You can find me at Cheese Talk Pod on Facebook and pretty much the same handle on all Twitter and Instagram and TikTok and YouTube and I'm actually doing a little giveaway on my Facebook page. If you once I hit 1,000 followers, I'll be giving away a cheese curd sampler from Scray Cheese here in De Pere. It consists of six 14-ounce bags of fresh cheese curds. There's fresh yellow, there's Cajun, French onion, ranch, garlic pepper, dill, and garlic.
Nothing
So
better
yeah,
than cheese curds.
once I hit the 1,000, I'll be shipping out cheese curds to the winner. And I'm as of like 2 minutes ago, I'm like 229 followers away. So getting up there. So yeah, um, I try to go on every Saturday. Sometimes I go on Sunday, so I go on whenever pretty much. And I want to thank you again, and hopefully I can get you back on down the road, and we can hopefully be discussing the Packers' success and other Wisconsin sports once they start. And yeah, again, thanks for being on. I appreciate it.
Of course, we'll get together again. We'll get together again and talk. We'll get Ummer on here in time too. I'll yell at Ummer for a while. We'll ramble. It's how it goes.
Yeah, I had him on. Well, I had him on. What was it, last week, week before? But I had him on. I think I've had him on 3 times, and the second time I had him on, he had to do it like a last second like errand for his wife, and he's like was at Costco. He sat down on the
That's
couch. He was at
Ummer.
Costco, and
That's Ummer
and
for
he
you
was
right there.
and I'm pretty sure he was wearing a Packer shirt, and during like the podcast, someone walked by and said, "Go Pack, go!" So that's pretty cool. But yeah, it'd be cool to get like you and him on at the same time, and
Oh,
we
he knows
could
how to push my
talk
buttons, and
Packers.
I know how to push his buttons. So it'd be a rambling time.
No, I'm looking forward to it. I'll sit back and just watch.
That's all you can do. That's all you can do.
All right, man. Well, I appreciate it. Have a good rest of the night, Trey.
You too. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.